Okay, so hey guys, welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Live video if you do indeed like video, and let's get straight into it. So, of course, starting with the boxing news, and so Navarrete versus Valdez 2 and Espinosa versus Ramirez 2 is rumoured for December 7th. If that gets pulled off as a card, that would be a very nice card. I mean, two fights that were so entertaining the first time round, and I would love to see them both again. So hopefully that December 7th card comes through. Daenerys is in talks to fight Gonzalez. I think that would also be an excellent fight. Two guys who, arguably are past their best in their career, but are two legends of the sport, and I still believe have a little bit to give. And in a fight like that, I think that's a fight that does necessarily make sense. BoxRec have removed the WBA rankings, the WBA sanctioning body from their site. Crawford has vacated his WBO welterweight world title, and Norman Jr. has been elevated to full WBO welterweight world champion, and so that was everybody was expecting, and now Norman Jr. I suppose has a little bit more maybe pull in the division. I'm not really too sure. It is a weakened division now that Crawford has left. Hearn wants to make Edwards versus Yafai. I think that's a great domestic fight. Brown will turn pro, and that's after his Olympic spell. His Excellency has ruled out working with Zhu, so possibly that rules out opportunities of certain big fights like the Vergil Ortiz one, which of course was once scheduled, and that is kind of sad because I was very excited for that fight. But at the same time, I believe Zhu still has a path that he can go down. I believe, I'm going to talk about a fight that's set to be made for him in a moment, but there is a route available for him, I believe. Eubank Jr. has called out Ben, Saunders, Canelo, Crawford and Lara. That's basically his hit list, as he wants to call it, and he expects to fight Canelo in May. Will we see that happen? I'm not too sure, but possibly, because of how close it seemed like that fight could have gotten before. But like I say, we'll have to wait and see if that one actually does happen. And necessarily, I don't know if Canelo needs a fight like a Eubank. Ball vs Rios, Kane vs John, Turner vs Rafferty, Herrera, Strand, Turner and Birchall will fight October 5th. I believe that's a pretty good Queensberry card. It's good to see Ball having his homecoming, and to be fair, Rios is going to be a tough fight. Somebody who I've had the pleasure of speaking to on this channel a little while ago, but somebody who's been around and experienced some top level guys, and like I say, it's going to be a tough fight. I also think Kane vs John's going to be a good fight as well. Ali will fight September 27th. Stevenson is in talks to fight Cordina. That's an interesting one. Not really too sure where that came from. Cordina possibly moving up to lightweight now, and I mean, after his loss to Kakache, nobody's really gunning to see Stevenson versus Cordina, but I suppose with the way that things are going, if Stevenson is not going to get another top level fight again, still not get given one, then I suppose why not make that fight? It's an interesting one. A deal has been agreed for Clark versus Wardley 2. Clark versus Apoche and Cardenas versus Chiga will fight August 31st. Taylor will fight Silva August 31st. Finkel has ruled out Okoli versus Wilder. Wilder moving down to Bridgeweight and fighting Okoli. I don't really necessarily know what much is left for Wilder, and I just don't necessarily think that there is a need for him to go down the weight or anything like that. I think he realistically should just retire. The BBB OFC have ordered Bellotti vs Gomez Jr. Zhu is set to fight Murtazaliev October 19th. Like I say, that is a good fight to make. I think it's going to give him that title opportunity, and it's against one of the champions who's still tough but a bit lesser known, and so I believe it was an easier fight to make, and it's still, like I say, keeping Zhu at the top level. And Zhu has then said, I believe, that he wants to fight Lubin in like December, and then Fundora in like March time. So yeah, I think that's good. It will keep him active and keeping him fighting top level guys, and realistically that's all I kind of want him to see, because I believe he is a quality fighter and should be fighting these top level guys and shouldn't take a step down just because he isn't working with His Excellency anymore. Moving on, IBF have ordered Ennis vs Chukadzian. Gonzalez has joined Queensberry. Barrero Jr., Zamora and Zavaro will fight September 20th. Walsh versus Rowalski. Carty, Akhmedov, O'Keefe and Brennan will fight September 20th. Nonchinga is rumoured to fight Ibuki next. Kumara will fight Kine Siona October 12th. Coelho has reached deal to fight Martin. Walters is set to fight Diaz Jr. October 9th. Ford is rumoured to fight Gonzalez November 9th. Hitchens is rumoured to fight Lipinets. Davis is set to fight November 2nd, so that would be the date as to what we see with everything, including Stevenson and also Zepeda as well, and there is a couple of other guys floating around as well, so we'll have to wait and see, but November 2nd seems like that's the date, and I believe it would be a big card and a big fight for Davis no matter what, hopefully. Hitchens said that Lopez is suffered a brain bleed. That is, it's one of the things in boxing. It's sad to see. It's been something which is very common to see. I hope he is getting all the support in which he kind of needs and is in the right place with it. It's just, I don't necessarily know when that happens. I believe it does scar fighters, and necessarily they shouldn't go on to carry on fighting after that because of the effect, of course, it's already had on their brain. So, of course, it was a huge knockout, and so I'm sure it has had an effect. And I just don't necessarily know if Lopez should carry on fighting medically after this, and to be fair, also mentally as well. Like I say, it will have an effect on him. But for the moment, hope he's all okay. Hope everything is going okay with that, and fingers crossed. And I'll keep everybody updated with that. Ahmed won by TK round 2 vs Jackson. Wood won by points vs Gomez. Payne won by points vs Mosquera. Hamilton won by points vs Howe. Adams won by points vs Solano. Franken won by points vs Sparta. Feo won by points vs Rodriguez. Yumbi won by decision vs Berardi to become RBO Continental Cruiserweight Champion. Bentley won by TK round 2 vs Osaze to remain WBO International Middleweight Champion, and it was sad to see Osaze lose, somebody who I had the pleasure of speaking to in my first ever boxing event, that I was there to do media for, and he's not really been out actively fighting much, but I thought this Bentley test was going to be a tough test, and it was. And he was coming on confident, but Bentley still has that power there, and he showed it, and that was an impressive knockout win for him, and he still has that skill. I do fully believe that Heaney night was just an off night for Bentley. Who will we see Bentley in with next? Probably not Hamza Shiraz, because obviously he's fighting Denny, and then we have to wait for everything, including that. So possibly, maybe a Heaney rematch again, maybe a Brad Pauls. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But he's definitely progressing in the right way, and he loves a good Yorkle knockout win from the moment, and fighting very well at the moment and returning back to his best. Moving on to Matthew, won by unanimous decision vs Galavar. Asanu won by unanimous decision vs Carnejo. Mason won by TK round 2 vs Onan. Junior Chabot won by unanimous decision vs Guanelmil. Tucker won by unanimous decision vs Fernandez. Budoin won by unanimous decision vs Crespo to become WBO International Super Featherweight Champion. Iglesias won by TKO in round 2 versus Agbeco. Vianello won by TKO in round 8 versus Makhmudov. Mbili won by unanimous decision vs Derevianchenko to remain WBC Continental American Super Middleweight Champion. And to speak about a few fights of that card, I think in general, when you think about a complete, well-rounded card, that's what that was. To be honest, it had a bit of everything what you kind of want from a boxing event, and that is, you have the heavyweight fight. That was an entertaining heavyweight fight. You have the young prospect who's really coming through and put on a statement. You have an entertaining main event, and then also just a couple of other decent fights involved, and a good stoppage win for Iglesias as well. So, Mason is looking excellent at the moment and really progressing nicely, and the way that his style does look very matured already, and it looks like he knows exactly what he's doing. He looks so composed, so comfortable at every range, and even though he does have that relatively big reach, he seems to be able to fight so well on the inside, and I'm really excited to see him progress, and I'm really hoping he can progress well. Iglesias, obviously, he's very powerful and really kind of putting out statement wins, and on a big stage he had to put out a big win there, and he did. and that was a big knockout. And Beko, I thought he was going to lose and probably get stopped, but maybe not in that fashion. And Iglesias did well to do that, and hopefully now Top Rank will see that there is a talent there in Iglesias and will give him that opportunity. I still think defensive-wise there are issues with him, but for the moment I'd like to see him continue to progress in the super middleweight division and see where things can end up for him. I think there is definitely a route that he can go with Top Rank that will get him in good fights. The Vianello win versus Makhmudov, I believe that pretty much shuts down Makhmudov as a top heavyweight contender. He was obviously, when he came up, he was knocking out everybody in the early rounds, looking very, very destructive and had that kind of scary look about him. But Vianello, he did good. He was throwing quite a lot. He put it on him and didn't really let Makhmudov work, but it wasn't anything too crazy. I don't really think boxing skill-wise it was anything too crazy, and it'd be interesting to see where Vianello goes next. But I mean, Makhmudov, he's tough. He's going forward with that eye was crazy. Like that eye was so bad, and I mean it was weird that he basically did have a knockdown but didn't get called a knockdown. But nonetheless, I think it was an eye opener to see Makhmudov probably isn't really what everybody once thought he was, and I just don't know necessarily what could be next for him. And then the Mbele win was an excellent win versus Derevyanchenko. Obviously, he got tested a little bit, but that's kind of what you want to see. I think it was about time that we've seen Mbele get properly tested. He has been fighting around a relatively high level for a while, but not like a world level. And I'm not necessarily saying Derevyanchenko is, but he's just always going to give you a tough test. And you've got to give him credit to Derevyanchenko because he has been in with so many top guys and has gone the distance with them and just been really, really tough to be able to beat. And obviously he's not always gotten a nod, but he is a really good gatekeeper top fighter and always brings entertaining fights as well, and that was definitely that. And like I say, he tested Mbele. Maybe if this was a younger Derevyanchenko and he could have really tested him into the later rounds. But Mbele, I like him. He's explosive. He really twists into his shots and kind of animal-like in the way that he kind of uses his work. And yeah, it's really, really impressive. And I'd like to see him to continue to progress. Probably main event and top rank events. I don't see anything wrong with that. And putting Canada on the map for boxing, obviously, of course, he's not Canadian, but just bringing big events to Canada is a big thing in itself. And yeah, hopefully we'll see him continue to progress. I don't necessarily know where he'd like to go next. Maybe a Munguia type fight would be a great fight if Munguia can get through his tough test next. We'll have to wait and see, but against Bazinian, but that could be an excellent fight as well. But I definitely think there are also options available for Mbele, and in general the super middleweight division is looking pretty good at the moment. I mean, you kind of think of names like Mbele, Balanga, Munguia, Bazinian, of course Iglesias coming up, Pacheco, Canelo, of course. So there are names around, and I think it is in a pretty good position at the moment. I probably missing a couple of names, but yeah, in general I think it's in an interesting position, and I think there are top fights to be made around. And then moving on now to the MMA news. Not loads of kind of boxing news this week. Same with MMA, not loads of news. Pereira vs Roundtree, Pennington vs Pena, Vieira vs Harrison, Evalaia versus Sterling, Bautista vs Aldo, Delizzi vs Holland, and Thompson vs Buckley will fight October 5th. I mean, it's crazy realistically to see Pereira fighting again. I remember he said he didn't really want to fight till like November, December time, but a month earlier in October is something that we're not going to be complaining about. Even though it's against an interesting opponent, I mean, I'm pretty sure Roundtree tested positive for some sort of performance-enhancing drug, but I don't necessarily know for sure. I think that's why the fight didn't end up happening versus Hill, but I'm not too sure. But I know Hill wasn't too happy about Roundtree getting this Pereira fight. Obviously, everybody's saying Ankalaev and everything like that. Obviously, Ankalaev has a fight booked, but at the same time, he probably did deserve that title shot. It kind of makes sense because he doesn't really want to fight outside of Abu Dhabi from the scenes with Ankalaev, and he doesn't have the most entertaining of styles, and they want to keep Pereira fighting, and I'm sure Pereira was just more than happy to take this fight. And you never know, Roundtree could get a massive, massive win and really change his life around, but we'll have to wait and see. But Pereira, nonetheless, it's nice to see him fighting again, and he makes every card entertaining at the moment, and so yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think Pennington vs Pena is a good fight. I believe it's a nicely matched up fight, but I also think Harrison is coming, and if she can get through Vieira, then it's going to be a very tough test for any of the top females in that division. And yeah, so it seems like these kind of fights with Pennington, Pena at the moment are just kind of waiting for that Kayla Harrison fight, because Kayla is coming through with so much momentum and I believe can go to the top, so we'll have to wait and see. Evlive Sterling is an interesting fight. I believe it's two fighters in which Dana White doesn't really want to have too much higher up cards anymore because he just doesn't really like their style, but is willing to give them opportunities still. And like I say, it's an interesting contest. Good to see Aldo back. Bautista will be an entertaining fight for sure. And then Holland vs Stolidze and Thompson vs Buckley are great fights. So that undercard is really just entertaining. They're two really entertaining fights there, and I'm sure they will deliver. Blanchfield vs Namajunas and Lewis vs Romanov will fight November 2nd. Aguiar won by submission round 1 versus Nicole. Keenan won via decision vs Glenn. Nolan won by decision vs Reyes. Jenkins won via KO in round 3 vs Burns. O'Neill won by decision vs Santos. Ramos won by decision versus Colibao. Walker won by submission round 1 versus Taffa. Prates won via KO in round 2 versus Jing Liang. Rosenstruck won by decision vs Tuivasa. Hooker won by decision vs Gamrot. Cara France won by KO in round 1 versus Ursig. Duplessis won by submission in round 4 versus Adesanya to remain UFC middleweight champion. And to speak a bit more about that card, obviously one of the main kind of bits of news from this week was this card, and I think it lived up. I think there was definitely entertaining parts of it. I mean, the Walker Taffa fight, the submission was a strange submission, but it's funny to see Taffa just go up and slap him afterwards. That was random. Prates, that was a very nice KO versus Jing Liang. I think he picked his shots really nice and looked very comfortable, and Jing Liang had never been stopped, and so that was a big statement to make, and it was, like I say, a strong KO. But I think fighters like Jing Liang are kind of done their careers now. I don't really think there's much left for them to give. Rosenstruck, that was a nice decision with versus Tuivasa. I mean, of course, the judge that gave all 3 rounds to Tuivasa is crazy, and it's wild how he kind of just got dismissed of his duties right after that, as you've never pretty much seen that happen before. But that's a good thing. That's definitely progression for MMA as a sport, to be able to just kind of see that a decision has gone bad and just be able to just get rid of a judge like that. I'd say it's a good thing, and yeah, that could be something I'd be up for to continue on. Obviously, Tuivasa I think could be done as well now. I don't really think there's much left to give for him. The Hooker decision with Gamrot was a good one, to be honest. I mean, Hooker's really elevated himself in the lightweight rankings with that win. Obviously, it was a close fight. I think Hooker probably did do enough to win, and there was, it was high paced, it was high tempo, there was knockdowns for both, and Hooker's always going to bring that entertaining style that he has, and yeah, that was a good win for him, and really, like I say, it does elevate him, and I don't really necessarily know where he goes next, but I know it's always a fan-friendly style. Cara France, great knockout versus Ursig, he really kind of had to make a big statement there, and everybody thought Ursig would be able to win, even all the commentators were pretty much just saying that how good Ursig was and wasn't really giving Cara France much credit, but that was a punishing, explosive knockout, and now Ursig isn't at the, he's gone from being in a close decision for the title to now being knocked out in the first round, and Cara France has now put himself in a position where he's probably waiting for that title shot after, not being on the craziest runs of form, but like I say, another first round knockout, and for them smaller guys to be able to consistently get them first round knockouts, fair play to him. Duplessis, though, that submission was an interesting one. I mean, Adesanya, I got my prediction wrong. Adesanya was winning, and he was looking like he was having a lot of success with shots. He looked like a little bit uncomfortable at times with the pressure that Duplessis was coming forwards with. Duplessis' style is so unique, I suppose, just come forwards, and it's very messy, very wild, but it just seems to work. And he, of course, is very strong. But as soon as Adesanya just went and tried to make it into a fight, he just kind of messed up, and I think he knew that straight away that he messed up. I just don't know why he did it. It was a strange one, but Du Plessis literally capitalised straight away. Adesanya now, he still looked good in that fight. I just don't necessarily know why he did that. I mean, maybe it's because he's been getting backlash for not really kind of giving it all his fights and kind of cruising through rounds a little bit. But I just don't necessarily know why he did that against Du Plessis when he was winning. But yeah, now Du Plessis, another win for him, and like I say, really unorthodox style, but still managing to get the wins. Probably will fight Strickland next. Wants to fight Pereira, moving up in weight. I think that would be an entertaining fight, but I think Du Plessis gets hit a lot, and somebody like a Strickland, somebody like an Adesanya maybe isn't got the power to be able to slow him down, but somebody like a Pereira definitely does, and if he's getting hit that much against Pereira, he could struggle a bit. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you did, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.